All right, so hello, welcome everyone. Today, Bist and Bayar will be having our awesome topic this Wednesday with our lovely guest speaker, Nazeeg. So today's topic will be focused on from struggle to strength, rising through adversity. So Nazeeg, our guest speaker, will be covering a few points this session. A few points that we will be covering today are the reality of invisible struggles. Secondly, finding purpose in the pain. The third would be the power of hope and resilience. Nazeeg is the founder of Invisible Scar. She is also a concussion advocate, artist, and strategy leader. Nazeeg is a concussion warrior, blogger, and the voice behind Invisible Scar, a growing platform dedicated to breaking the silence around post-concussion syndrome, mental health, and invisible injuries. Nazeeg's life took a sudden turn in 2012 during a volunteer trip. What was followed a 6-year battle with an invisible illness filled with isolation, setbacks, and deep personal struggle, but also resilience, healing, and transformation. So we would like to welcome Nazeeg in sharing her story today with us. So without further ado, I'll let you take it away, Nazeeg.
Thank you, Madison. Firstly, I would like to thank the Brain Injury Association of York Region and the Brain Injury Society of Toronto for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today. It truly means so much to stand before such a strong and resilient community. It's been about 5 years since I last shared my journey. Looking back is never easy, but it means revisiting moments of struggle, uncertainty, and pain. But it also reminds us something powerful on how far we have come and how much we have grown and how strong we truly are. So every challenge we face shapes us, every setback teaches us, and every step forward, no matter how small, is proof of our courage. So my hope today is that my story reminds you of your own strength, your own resilience, and your ability to overcome whatever stands in your way. Because if there's one thing that I've learned is that we truly are stronger than we realize. A bit of housekeeping. I just want to remind you that this is a safe space. It's an open and inclusive environment. And please express yourself freely, ask as many questions as you'd like, and accept others in the same way. Let's hold space for one another with kindness and allow this session to be one for connection, honesty, and healing. So a little bit about me. So I have become a mom, and it's been one of the most transformative experiences of my life. And my new favorite title is definitely mom. It's given me a different meaning in life, and meaning behind everything, even the painful moments. I'm married to a wonderful husband. I met him after my recovery, and he has been a great support since. For me, family is everything, and they are the foundation. So these are the most important people in my life, and they mean everything to me. And the reason I recovered them, this photo is of my sister and my parents. And when I say I recovered because of them, I do mean it. Their unconditional love gave me something to fight for. Even when I wasn't sure I could fight for myself, they advocated for me and they loved me unconditionally when I couldn't even like myself through my challenge. Art has always been an outlet for me, even before my accident. I started Nazali Designs when I was 12 years old, creating jewelry for fun, making it into a business. And creativity became a big part of my escape and therapy, in a way for me to express myself when weren't really working. It helped me process, release, and really survive in different ways. Some of you may remember we did beading sessions with BIST at the time with Warriors across Canada, actually in 2021. So got fond memories of that. In 2018, it was my turning point, and I turned my pain into purpose and pursued my MBA. It wasn't just about a degree for me at the time. It was about proving to myself that I was rising again, and I was unstoppable, and nothing was unattainable. In Invisible Scar, it's a big way for how people have found me over the years, but it was a journal of my journey. So I began anonymously. Nobody, including my family, knew about it at the time. And I was sharing my journey from 2017. I'd say it was probably the darkest year yet. And I was just in search of answers. At first, it was a space for my pain or a way to kind of express myself. But then it grew into a platform of healing, community, and truth, and it became my journal and a way of connecting with others, walking a similar path. And today I continue to share my story with hopes that it makes other people feel less alone um, and walk the journey together. So, who was I before my accident? I would say I was probably just like any other 21-year-old young girl or lady looking with ambitions, with goals, aspirations. I was very, very social. I was at the time completing my third year of university studying economics. I was always active, focused, doing different activities all the time, very involved in the community as a volunteer. I had a lot of goals for university, what I wanted to do after, and had a big, big blueprint of how I saw things working out for me at the time. And it was a stage of my life where it really felt like nothing was impossible, everything was attainable. So for me, it was a single moment that really changed everything for me. I was on a volunteer trip that was supposed to be for for 1 month, and everything changed for me on the second night. So I was volunteering at a kids camp in Armenia, and that summer was the summer before my entering my last year of university. And I just wanted to give back and reconnect with my roots and make a difference. So I had a plan, I had expectations, I had a vision for how that month would go. But unfortunately, it didn't really end that way. And it was not how I imagined it at all. So on the second night of the trip, I fainted. I hit my head on a corner of a marble slab in the middle of the night, which left me unconscious. And until now, I don't know how long I was unconscious for. It was in the middle of the night. And at first, I didn't really think much of it. I had just met most of those volunteers on the trip that were with me, and I just didn't want to be a burden, but I knew I didn't feel right and something was off. But soon things took a turn, and I could really feel something was not right. So I could hardly walk. My headache didn't go away. And all of a sudden, I had brain fog, fatigue, and just didn't feel good. So I was diagnosed with a severe concussion a week later, and for the next 3 weeks of that trip, I was confined into a bed on strict bed rest, and waited desperately to get a green light to be able to travel back home to my parents and my family. And I still recall vividly running into my dad's arms at the airport, just sobbing with a sense of relief, and knowing I was home to my family. When I finally returned, it wasn't the fresh start I had hoped for. I was diagnosed with a severe concussion, microskull fracturing, rib fractures, and some other injuries. And I faced at that time about 6 to 8 months of strict bed rest. I was confined to lying down in bed, sleeping, and it felt like there was no relief in sight. And it meant that I had no movement. I spent most of my time in a dark room. There was a maximum of speaking an hour a day and anything to not stimulate the brain and encourage recovery. So no phones, no reading. So it was a dark place. It was dark both physically as well as mentally. And I think one of the hardest parts of that is from being so active physically, socially, in every way to going into strict bed rest in that sense and being disconnected from everything. It was very dark. I would say it was very dark physically as well as mentally. So during my 6 year struggle with a concussion, my reality was really shaped with persistent symptoms that no one could fully see or understand. I lived with constant headaches, a dull, throbbing pain that never really went away. Fatigue drained my energy, making even like the most simple tasks feel impossible. Some days I needed a nap after a shower, sometimes after doctor's appointments, which were really my only outing. I would come home and rest for hours just to recover from the stimulation of noise and light. Light and noise sensitivity made ordinary environments very overwhelming for me. Bright rooms and loud noises became sources of anxiety and very painful. I struggled with dizziness, blurred vision, and brain fog, making it very difficult to walk, drive, focus, or even think clearly. My ears were always ringing and constant noise that I couldn't escape. For the first year, I couldn't drive, and I had to rely on my support system. And that was one of the hard things to accept, losing independence and being reliant on others for different levels of support. So emotionally, it was a whirlwind. I would say I was very agitated. I was depressed, and there was a lot of anxiety that were part of that journey. One of the hardest parts of living with an invisible condition is navigating how others see you or didn't see you as part of the struggle. It was very frequent that I would get comments like the ones on the screen, like, this is your condition, learn to deal with it or learn to live with it. Just keep resting until you feel better. Nothing felt worse than hearing this from medical doctors. I was for years told that this would be my forever condition and I would just have to learn to live with it. Or sometimes the understanding that it wasn't really just a headache, there was more behind that. But it's always hard to be able to put that into words. There's never a bandage in front of your head to kind of show that you are injured and you are struggling in different ways. I kept my struggle private to the world. I wasn't very open about letting people know that I had a concussion, and a lot of these comments really deterred me from that as well. But I think hiding the pain behind a I used to hide my pain behind a quiet smile because I didn't want to not just be a burden, but I didn't want it to define me. In the 6 year struggle, I think not labeling myself to the concussion somehow gave me hope that this wouldn't be forever. If I didn't identify with it, maybe I could somehow aspire to not be associated with it forever, and somehow I would recover. But I was truly blessed in ways that sometimes when I look back, to have my closest friends that unconditionally stood by my side, my sister and my parents. And those who really saw me beyond the surface and helped me navigate the challenge when it truly felt unbearable. Their love and support became a lifeline in my darkest moments. One of the things I often think about is really I couldn't recognize myself anymore, especially after a few years of being in this kind of a condition. I wasn't sure who I was, what the future held, or what I was capable of. Would I ever live a life with no pain? For the longest time, I didn't think I would ever have a life with no pain. And I share these photos because the black and white really shows the reality behind the scenes and the moments I had kept hidden from the world. Lots of tears behind closed doors, the despair that no one really saw or sometimes understood. And most people couldn't grasp the depth of my pain or the setbacks that followed, even the smallest outings. There was so much pain involved in everything that was going on. And that's the reality of invisible struggles. What you don't see can still hurt deeply. Brain injuries are invisible. So for 6 years, I lived with the daily struggles that no one could see. And sometimes it really did feel lonely. Even being surrounded by so much love, it was a very lonely journey. But then there was also colorful moments like the ones that I share there with the sunglasses. My eyes were always shielded by sunglasses, not just from the sun, but also light sensitivity and swollen eyes from the pain. But behind the scenes, there's behind that, there's the young lady in her early 20s battling mental and emotional storms, enduring relentless physical pain, and yet choosing to show up however she could. So I wore a smile to the world, even when things on the inside were hard and I was struggling. And I think that's one of the things I look back on, and I acknowledge the courage to keep going, to keep shining, even if things were hard on that day. I look back, 2017 was one of my darkest years. That's when it was about 5 years into my injury. And at that point, I wasn't sure of if recovery was possible. So I share this quote because I often look back on it and think about it. So it says, brain injury changes people. It sculpts us into someone who understands more deeply, hurts more often, appreciates more quickly, cries more easily, hopes more desperately, loves more openly, and lives more passionately. So 2017 was one of the darkest years of my life. It was a time that I didn't believe that there would ever be a life without pain. After 5 years of trying, searching, and barely holding on, I was convinced that this was it, that the pain would never leave and I'd never feel like myself again. That joy and peace were things that were meant for other people. I stopped picturing the future. I stopped planning. I stopped recognizing myself, and yet somehow I kept going. Appointment after appointment, breakdown after breakdown, after many, many tears. I moved forward even when it didn't feel like progress. Every step, every setback, every moment was shaping me in ways I couldn't see yet. And I look back now at that young girl with so much pride, because she was trying. Even when she felt like it wasn't good enough, she couldn't accept things as they were forever. And that's what I am most proud of. That version of me, the one that survived 2017, I think she's the reason I'm standing here today because every single part of the journey led me here. It didn't just change me, it transformed me. This was one of the posts that I had on Invisible Scar initially when I was going through my concussion. And towards the end, after the 5 year mark, especially, it kind of really didn't recognize myself. And I think I was very agitated, sad, and perhaps angry. I think I was. So it says, I sat in anger for a while until I realized it was, in fact, grief all along. And I did sit in anger for a long time, but eventually I realized that what I was really feeling wasn't just anger, it was grief. I was grieving the loss of the person I used to be, the life that I had planned, the future that I thought I'd have. Life felt like it was on hold, and most of my friends didn't understand what I was going through. My pain was invisible. At the end of the day, people were in their 20s enjoying their life, and I felt so confined to my limitations. It wasn't just the pain itself, but it was the entire journey that felt invisible. And even today, the scars I carry are invisible. And I share this with you because I want you to know it's okay to feel what you're feeling. It's valid to be angry, frustrated, and overwhelmed amid adversity. And grief is a natural part of healing. And recognizing it was a turning point for me, the beginning of a breakthrough towards acceptance and recovery. And you're not alone in your feelings. Every emotion you experience really does matter. So navigating adversity, it's never a straight line. In fact, during concussion, felt after having one good day, it felt like there was 10 bad days, or after an hour outing, there was always recovery for a few days that had happened in between. And I always asked myself during, oops, I think there's some writing. Was
Miss
that me?
Meek, so we can uh let's have you maybe stop sharing your slides and then we can reshare. There
Okay.
may have been just a technical issue, so
No worries.
thanks everyone for your patience. Um, we can just have you reshare.
Can you see my screen?
Awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. So healing after adversity is rarely as simple in your path. Some days feel like progress, and then others feel like setbacks. And it was frustrating, encouraging, discouraging to face these ups and downs, but every step forward, no matter how small, is meaningful. So understanding that healing takes time and allowing yourself patience and kindness is a crucial part of the journey. It's not about perfection, it's about resilience, persistence, and honoring your own pace. So, shortly after my accident, when everything felt uncertain and dark, my sister and I bought this photo when we were out. And even though on many days I couldn't feel hopeful or see a path forward, I chose to keep this photo in my room right across from my bed. So, it was the first thing I saw every morning, and the last thing every night. And it became a symbol for me, a quiet promise to myself that the best was still ahead. It had to be. I had to believe it for it to eventually happen. So sometimes hope isn't about what's visible in the moment. It's about choosing to believe it in something better, even when it feels out of reach. So that belief became one of the greatest sources of my strength on the hardest days. And I still hold on to it. It's still in my office today. And I choose to live with that hope and know that even amidst any challenges that are inevitable in our life, we have to believe that the best is yet to come. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel, which is what my mom always promised me. One of the most powerful turning points in my recovery was learning that admitting you're not okay um, and asking for help wasn't weakness. It was, in fact, strength. For a long time, I thought if I pushed through on my own, I would be okay. But healing from a brain injury isn't something you can really do in isolation. It requires support, awareness, and a willingness to slow down, to listen to your body and what it really needs at that time. So when I finally reached out for help, I did something I didn't know I needed so deeply, community. Whether it was healthcare professionals, family members, or someone simply willing to listen, every hand that reached out for that reached back helped me move forward. And self-care after a brain injury isn't what we kind of think about with the bubble baths and journaling. It looks like staying in a dark room when your head is pounding, saying no to plans that you've planned with your friends for in weeks in advance, stepping away from the screens after watching a show that you've been really looking forward to, or sometimes just breathing through the pain and trying to manage that. It's being gentle with yourself when everything feels heavy and accepting that recovery doesn't mean bouncing back. It means moving forward differently. And above all, it's remembering that you're not alone in your struggle. There's people who care, there is a path forward, and there is a strength in saying, I need help. In the darkest moments, I almost felt like I had nowhere to go, or I didn't know who I could speak to that would truly understand. And I was surrounded by so much support and so much love. But I think sometimes, unless somebody's really going through the same experience, it's really hard for them to connect or speak or to you in the way that you feel validated. So for me, one of the things I did in 2017 after a very dark year was starting my Invisible Scar blog or journal of my journey, as I like to say. And I started this anonymously. Nobody knew I started, and my parents, my sister didn't know. And I started this in a way of for looking for answers. Um, to see if there was different care out there, to see if there was anybody going through the same journey and experiencing similar pain that we could kind of connect with. And in the darkest moments, I typed out my pain in captions on Instagram, hoping that somebody, anybody would understand or guide me and or find new methods to alleviate it. I was looking for answers and maybe a little bit of light. And that space became more than an outlet. It became a bridge of healing, a community, and a reminder that most vulnerable moments can truly lead you to the greatest connections. And I'm still here. I'm still healing, still sharing, still listening for the person I once was, but for anyone else who's similarly searching for answers. I want to share this colorful image of my sister, Taline, and who's also online today. because it truly represents the light and brightness she brought into my life, especially during my darkest days and years. She would often remind me, take the dark sunglasses off, Naz. Things aren't as dark as they appear. And those words became a gentle push towards hope on days when everything felt overwhelming. She didn't stop searching for new methods, new care until we found what worked. I remember a time when she booked an appointment with a new doctor for me, hoping I'd finally get the care I so desperately needed. But I was scared of disappointment. There were so many disappointments in those 6 years, and I canceled without telling her. When she eventually found out, she didn't get angry, she didn't get upset with me. She just showed up. The next time she physically came with me to the appointment, sat beside me, and made sure I didn't walk away before I got any of the help I needed. It shaped the next steps of my recovery because that appointment was the reason I recovered. That was a doctor's that got, sorry, she never gave up, especially when I had given up on myself. She stood by me through the pain, the misunderstandings, and the loss of relationships. Her love and support was a constant lifeline, and when I felt most alone. She promised me better days, and she was right. Her presence was a beacon of hope in the darkness, reminding me that even when life feels unbearable, there is light ahead. And I couldn't have made it through without her. So my breakthrough came shortly after that. The doctor that I visited in May of 2018 was able to really find the answers and give me a path to recovery. There was three key things that helped me, and I can talk about that more in detail if anybody has questions afterwards. But it was changing my diet. I went into a very strict anti-inflammatory diet. I was also advised to begin movement, something that was the opposite of what the medical system had told me for many years. I began doing walks, pushing myself a little bit more at a time, still listening to my body, but beginning movement again. And there was a mix of a chiropractic, acupuncture, and massage therapy that truly helped shift things. And it was from the first consultation that I was able to fully see the impact there. And I'll never forget this moment for me. So if we fast forward to June 21st, that was when I was officially discharged. As a patient, I was no longer considered a concussion patient. And I still vividly remember this. My sister was away, my parents were an hour away. I was living in Toronto at the time, and I didn't think there was anybody else I could really share that whole moment with. So I drove to High Park in Toronto and sat under the sun. I hadn't had a burger in a long time because of the anti-inflammatory diet. And I remember just grabbing a burger, sitting alone, listening to the birds chirping. And for the first time in a long time, I had no pain and I was just embracing the relief. It was a moment where nothing felt unreachable, nothing felt too far. Um, and it was the day, it didn't really mark the end of the healing journey, I would say. I truly believe it marked the beginning. And after 6 long years, I often look back at this moment and I just really feel at that moment, I felt like nothing was impossible and I felt unstoppable. And this is also a picture from June of 2018, just a week after I was officially discharged. And when I compare this to the photos I had before of my recovery, it's just pure joy, happiness, pain-free relief. And I used to think that healing meant going back to who I was, back to how things used to be. I used to grieve the old person, but I know that the truth is that I outgrew my before. And in the in between, I found stillness, clarity, and strength. I began to see beauty in what I overlooked, a smile, a walk in the park, birds chirping, a good moment, a win in a hard day. And everything changed after that. I didn't plan for life to break me open, but I think once it did, I decided to rebuild with intention. So one of my biggest accomplishments is my MBA, but pursuing my MBA wasn't just a career step for me. It was an act of defiance against everything that had tried to stop me up until then. Every assignment I submitted, every class I showed up for, was proof that I was reclaiming my future. I didn't return to who I was before, but I rose as someone new, and I carry that in everything I do. So this quote is one of the ones that I wrote after my recovery, and I will share it with you today. You'll see it when you believe it. One day you will wake up, and all of a sudden, the weight of the last few weeks, months, or years will be lifted off of your shoulders. You can't control the day that comes. All you can do is stay strong and trust that it is coming. You'll see it when you believe it. The best is yet to come. I didn't know when things would get better. I just knew I had to believe that they could. And some days belief was all that I had. And on the days that I couldn't find it, my sister and my parents held it for me. Their faith in me kept the light on. Healing didn't come all at once, but piece by piece, belief made it visible. And the journey continues. Life still has challenges, but we learn to adapt. And I think as I close, I want to remind you that the journey does not stop here. Life always comes with challenges we don't expect. For me, recovering from a concussion wasn't easy. Oh, should I
Yeah,
ask that
I
again, Matt?
apologize, everyone. If you want to maybe please reshare um, your slides.
Mhm. All good?
Yes, that looks great.
Perfect. So for me, recovering from a concussion wasn't easy. There were moments when things didn't go the way I planned. My reality didn't really match the blueprint I had for my life, and that was a hard thing to accept at first. But through the experience, I think I gained something powerful. I gained tools for the future inevitable challenges that will all be faced in one way or another. I gained strength. And most importantly, I learned that difficult moments are temporary. They are different seasons of life. We may be in the cold winter now, but warm, sunny summer is always ahead. They don't define us, they shape us. So if your life doesn't look exactly how you imagined it right now, that doesn't mean it's bad. It means you're growing. It means your story is still being written and the journey continues. So I'd like to close it off by thanking you all for listening and being part of today, and for holding space for me. If there's one thing I've learned from my journey, it's that healing is never linear, and we are never meant to do it alone. We all carry invisible scars in some form, but when we share our stories, we begin to see that we are not broken. We are becoming. So if today spoke to something within you, please don't let the conversation end here. I would love to stay connected, to grow together, and to continue learning from one another. You can find me on Invisible Scar on Instagram, where I share my journey and hope to hold space for you as well. And you can email me directly. My email is on the screen. Let's continue to lift each other up. Let's keep reminding one another that the best is yet to come. I'd love to open the floor to any questions, reflections, or anything you'd like to share. My sister Taline is also in the audience if you want to have any kind of input as a caregiver. This is a safe space, and I welcome whatever's on your heart.
Thank you so much, Nazeeg. That was really empowering and really inspiring. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm going to actually turn this recording off and I'm going to open up the floor to people who, may have a question, comment. Um, Please feel free to unmute yourself and you're more than welcome to, of course, uh, put any of your thoughts in the chat. I'm just going to stop the recording here.